Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lindsay, a member of the CK12 team, and my colleague Felix and I will be running this learning management breakout session on CK12 and Google Classroom. We're really glad that you guys have joined us. We are offering this session as part of the 2019 CK12 Certified Educator Program as an additional resource for those of you using Google Classroom. Given the short nature of this session and the focus on a platform outside of CK12, this session does not count toward your 5 required live sessions, and it does not have a matching assignment. But obviously, you all are here because you're Google Classroom users and you want to use it more effectively with CK12, so that's awesome. We are still using our Zoom platform. The big reminder that we try to tell all of you is to make sure that you're sending messages in the chat window to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see it. And then the Q&A is where you're going to type in your questions that you want Felix to answer during this webinar. While it's not a core offering, we do have a resource page for this session. The tiny URL is at the top, CK12 Google 2019. It will also be in your program Flexbook that can be used as a reference. You can download it, you can print it, or just know that it's there if you'd like to return to it at a later date. All right, we're going to get started right away with our content. Like I said, post any questions you have as we go along in the Q&A window, and we will stop and field those. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about Flexbooks 2.0 and related modalities. We're going to give you a quick overview of CK12's Flexbook 2.0 platform and learning modalities that can be assigned to classes in Google Classroom. And then we're going to talk about our integration with Google Classroom, how to assign content and practice, and see student progress in Google. So as a lot of you are finding out, we have launched our Flexbooks 2.0, and those lessons include text, and often have embedded multimedia and questions as well, but they come with a corresponding practice or customized quiz. Other assignable resources, which can be found in the related modalities for a 2.0 lesson, or you can find them individually across our site, include videos, simulations, Clicks interactives, and real-world applications. We cover many of these in depth in other webinars, so we really just want to talk about how you assign these in Google Classroom and what is reported back to you. These charts are on several of our resource pages this summer, so you don't need to frantically write these down or study them. They are available to you, but let me talk you through what this means. When you assign a Flexbook 2.0 lesson, you are automatically assigning any matching practice or quiz attached to that lesson. The score reported to your class will be based on the attached practice or quiz. These are scored as a % out of a goal of 10 correct for practice, or the total number of questions for a quiz. If you make your own Flexbook and have yet to include matching practice, then the lesson would be assigned like other learning modalities with full or no credit given. Okay, so that's a Flexbook 2.0. If you're working with individual modalities, if you assign a practice or a quiz, they're going to report the same way as they do in a 2.0 lesson. The difference here is that you'll notice reads, videos, and real-world applications. It's going to show up as full or no credit. If you want to reference this chart, again, you can do it on our resource pages. So now it's going to be Felix's turn, and he's going to talk to you specifically about Google Classroom.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hello, everybody. My name is Felix. So just real quick to touch on the difference between sharing and assigning to Google. So you'll notice there's an option to share something with Google. Throughout our site, there's a lot of places where you can do this. The big difference is when you're sharing something, you're basically just sending them the URL to that particular resource. So there's no actual emphasis on like them actually doing any work. It's just simply just the link that you're sharing on the class that they can access and open. Versus assigning, when you're creating an assignment for Google Classroom, you're actually creating an actual assignment within Google Classroom itself. where the students can actually attend that assignment, do some work, and then have the appropriate score sent back to Google so that you as the teacher of the class can see that in your Google Classroom gradebook. So that's the big difference between the two. And then if you're coming in for the first time and you're starting with the integration, you'll click on the connect to Google and then you'll choose an account. You'll also see a permissions screen, usually for the first time, that asks you a bunch of permissions. And basically what that's asking is for us, in order for the integration to work properly, we need access to your Google Classrooms courses, as well as your student roster, the ability to create assignments, and also to grade assignments on behalf of you for your students. And so with that, I'm going to take over and share my screen and kind of walk you through the integration. So I'll do that now. So hopefully you're seeing my screen. This is our website, if you haven't seen it already. I'm already signed in as a teacher. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and walk you through probably a more common one. I know a lot of you probably are using Flexbooks or have maybe already customized something. So I'll go ahead and walk through assigning a Flexbook. And I'm actually going to I'll go to my library and find one. So here. So one thing I'll point out is that when you are assigning, if you want to assign something from a Flexbook, you're not able to assign the entire Flexbook. So if you did just want to share this with the, this would be something that you could just share, where it's just giving access to the resource. And I'll show you kind of another thing that you can do when creating an assignment. So first I'm going to go into the chapter, and then I'm going to jump into, let's do this first section here. So notice there's this assign a class option. I'm going to click on that. And so it brings up this little assign dialog. You have the option of changing the title for the assignment. And also here, there's an instructions box. Before I do any of that, I'm going to click on Google Classroom. And one thing to note is that if you're using Google Classroom, you do not and should not create classes on CK12. All of your class management is going to stay inside Google Classroom. We'll just take care of sort of managing accounts on our side, but it's not anything that you need to do separately. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Google Classroom, and now it's going to ask me to connect. And since I've previously done this, you're not going to see any of the permissions. And so these are all of the my current Google Classroom classes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a class, and you can select multiple. This one I just happen to have some active students in. Assign a due date, and this instruction box is actually really handy. So if you wanted to include like maybe a link to a book or some other resource, you can post that here. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'm going to click assign. And so right now I've just created an assignment for this class, and I'm going to click on this link just to take you straight to the class so you can see it. So here's my Si Se Puede class. So right here is this, this is the assignment that we just created, and here's that URL that I posted in the instructions box. One thing that you can do, I know people have asked, is they just want to assign it to certain students. So you can't do that directly in CK12, but what you can do is edit the assignment. And here you kind of have similar options. So again, there's the instructions option if you wanted to change the title. Right here where it says we by default just assign it to all students, you can come in and just select certain students if that's what you want. So you do have the option to do that. You just have to do it in Google Classroom. So I will change that. Also, you can change the points. So by default, we just do 100 points. And then you can also, if you have topics, you can attach topics. as well as additional resources. So I'm just going to save that. And so, so that's creating an assignment from a Flexbook section. Let me go back to CK12 and show you a couple more things. So let's go to algebra. So I'm going to go in here. Let's check out graphs and functions, and let's go to applications of functions. So here you'll see there's a bunch of different, what we call modalities, different resources and different ways to learn a particular topic or concept. So the ones that you can assign, there's the read, the Plix, video, practice, real world example. Those are all assignable. So I'll actually go into, let's check out a Plix. So this is going to open up in the full window to kind of allow you to see the Plix, interact with it. If this is actually what you want to assign, you're feeling good about it, click on the assign to class. Again, same options. Select Google Classroom, and then again, just pick the class. And I'm going to go ahead and assign this. Notice I didn't add a due date here. All right, so I have my Plix assignment, and I'm going to go back. And let's grab this practice also. So again, the same thing. And this one I'm just going to title practice. So for the practice and for the quiz, there's an extra option here that says show correct answers. So if you leave this unchecked, by default, it will not show the correct answers after the student does a submission. If this was checked, then if this was on after the student does a submission and they come back to see kind of like their report of that current attempt, they will also see, so any answers that they got incorrect, they'll also see the correct answer for. But since if this is off, they will only see the answers that they've submitted for the particular question. So even if they got it wrong, they'll only see their wrong answer and not the correct one. So that's what this is telling you here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and then I'm going to pick the same class. I'm going to give it a due date. And again, you can change your due date if you decide to within Google Classroom. And notice I'm not going to, I didn't have to set up these classes on CK12. These are coming directly from Google Classroom. So I went ahead and assigned that. And then I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do one more. One thing that's kind of helpful is if you're in CK12 and you've kind of been browsing, there is the dashboard which shows you kind of recently viewed, trending. You can get to some practice videos, Plix simulations. This is kind of based on what you've been searching, things you're assigning, kind of where you're going to on the site. So they try to match these different modality types with sort of what subjects you're interested in and things like that. So that's the and you can also assign from the dashboard to make things easier, and it brings up the same dialogue. So if you're ever looking to kind of quick assign, if you can do the dashboard, or if you bookmarked or saved things to your library, that's another option to kind of quickly get to things. But let me show you guys kind of our new Flexbook 2.0 and what assigning that looks like. So this is the new platform that we've been working on. It's been out for a little while now. I'm going to just jump into this section here. And then here's like the other ways to learn. So these are sort of related resources. I'm going to click on the start button. So right away you see this at the top. I'm going to click on assign. Again, I'm going to select Google Classroom. And here it has the same classes, same option, and that is because there is a practice associated with this. And so the difference between assigning like a Flexbook 1.0, the one that I previously did, the section there, this one will actually incorporate the practice that's associated with it. So you assign this, you don't have to separately assign the practice, you kind of get it all in one shot, which is pretty awesome. Again, I'm going to turn this on. And when you're assigning these, we have a start date and a due date. So the start date is required by default. It's the current date. And then due date, you can do same date or not, pick a date in the future. And this you can change also from within Google Classroom. It has the same instructions option, and then you can change the title up here. I'm going to leave all that the same, and then I'm going to click assign. All right, so that's done. So now I'm going to go to back to Google Classroom and kind of show you what these assignments look like. All right, so actually let me switch over to the student side so you guys can kind of see that. And okay, so here I am. I'm already signed in as my student. Here are all the assignments that have been assigned to me. The nice thing about this integration, I'm going to sign out of CK12 for a second. So students don't have to come directly to CK12 with this integration. And the reason why is because we actually, behind the scenes, we're creating the account, we're signing them in, and we're taking them to the assignment. So that's another reason why you don't want to kind of be using both CK12 and Google Classroom classes. It's really confusing, and it's a lot easier just to stick with one. So what I'm going to do is, let's open up this Plix assignment here. So right now it's going to log me into CK12, and then it's going to take me directly to this Plix assignment. And so for our Plix and our simulation assignments, it requires the student to interact with it in order for them to be able to submit. So for the Plix, this case, you have to attempt some of these challenge questions. And the only thing they have to do is interact. It doesn't matter if they get it right or wrong. We just want to see that they're interacting with it. And once they do that, this will automatically submit. And I'm going to jump back to our Google Classroom. You can see here, this is the same Plix assignment. It says that it was graded. You got 100%. So for our Plix interactives, our simulations, our read video, or like real world application assignments, they get full credit for once they attempt it. For reads and videos, once they open it, they get the full points. So I can show you that Flexbook that we assigned. And I'm going to click on this link here. So again, this is going to take me directly to that assignment. And one thing I'll point out is, so the view that we show for our Flexbook, call it 1.0, but our Flexbooks assignments that are not like the new 2.0, is we show this view, which is kind of like our embedded view. So it's really stripped down. There's nothing there. And since there's no practice associated with it, there's besides doing the reading, there's nothing else for them to do. But for these assignments, so the videos and the real world applications, as soon as they open it, they get, basically they get full credit. Unlike the interactives where they had to sort of interact with it a little bit to get the points to show up. So I'll go back and show you that now this is graded, and that's been graded. Let me go back and show you, I had an assignment that was this guy. So this is another, okay, yeah, this is our Flexbook 2.0 assignment that I had started earlier. So one thing, in order to turn in these assignments, if there's a practice or a quiz that's associated with, they'll have to do the practice first. If they go to click turn in, it's going to tell them that they need to do the practice first. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And I'm just going to pick some things. And I'm just going to stop here. So at this point, they are not completed, even though it may say submit, and they think they're done. They still have to go back a step to turn it in. So I'm going to click on this close button. And now that I'm back here, I can turn in the assignment. And then once this goes through, we'll go back and check the gradebook. All right, so let me switch over to this tab here. Okay, so you can see the score was submitted, 20 out of 100, not great, but it's here. So that's just one thing to point out. When they are working on these Flexbook 2.0 assignments, they do have to do the practice first. And if they try to click on turn in, it is going to tell them that they need to do that before they can actually turn in the assignment. And so with that, let me kind of show you the teacher gradebook.
So actually what you just showed, that's the same experience you all are having in our program Flexbook. We're asking you to do a quiz as your assignments and then close out of the report screen and make sure you're pressing that turn in button so that the report is kicked over to the CEP team. So you guys are doing that same process, and that's just an extra step to make sure that your students are aware of as they are doing assignments for you. So before you go into reports, Felix, I think the main trends and questions that have come into Q&A are basically, again, this, okay, so if I set up in Google Classroom, when do I still need to go into CK12 and check something? And then also about student accounts. Of our teachers needing to create separate accounts, or how does that work? Those are the biggest trends and questions.
Yeah, so I can answer that. So yeah, if you're using Google Classroom, there really is, and you're solely using Google Classroom, there's not going to be anything in CK12 for you to check. Your Google Classroom classes are not, we don't show them within the site. So if you were to go and look in the classes sections, you won't see any of your Google classes there. So there is actually nothing for you to check there, other than when you're creating assignments, or if you're just looking for other resources to share with the class. I think that would be when you're actually going to be on CK12, or if you're customizing, creating quizzes, customizing Flexbooks and things like that. That's when you would be on CK12. When you want to assign something to your Google Classroom, that's when you would be on CK12, but not if you're looking for reports. And that's actually what I'm going to show you here. So I guess there's two ways to sort of to view a report. Let me look for. And so for our reports, so this one was turned in by a student, and it was graded. For the practice and the quiz assignments in our Flexbook 2.0 sections that have either a quiz or practice, we attach sort of like their attempt. So with this, you'll see it has the number they got correct, what their best streak was, time spent, their mastery level, and then you can kind of scroll through and see the questions that were asked and what their responses were. So that we kind of attach here as a separate URL. The other thing that I saw Google has added is this grades tab, which looks a lot like our class reports, which you guys will be getting soon. Theirs doesn't, so our reports actually have a heat map, which makes it a little easier to kind of at a glance see this. I don't know if I have a sample of that to show you, but we are working on adding, updating our reports. So that report that I showed you, this guy will be updated to look like our new class reports. But this is another way to kind of at a glance see what was turned in on Google Classroom. You see the names of the assignments, and it just gives you like a quick class average. I only have one student that I'm working with, so it's not the best example. And also, this is the assignment that I had just assigned to my Google Classroom student. So here it says not assigned, which is nice to know. So this is another way to kind of see at a glance. But if you wanted to drill into, like I did that practice, this one wasn't turned in. This guy. You can click on it, and then you should see an attachment here. If you click on that, it's going to open up that page that looks like this. So that we do give you detailed sort of reports for those practice and quiz assignments. For the other guys, like you saw in the kind of the quick report, you just see the score. So like for our Sims, reads, video assignments, there isn't any sort of like questions or answers that we're recording. So they just either get full credit or they haven't accessed it or interacted with it. And I think with that, I will pause and then, yeah.
Sure. One question that's still in our Q&A, you touched on it earlier, but again, can you assign Flexbooks or other modalities to certain students?
So I can show you that. Let's see. So I guess the answer is yes and no. So I'll start with the no. No, not directly from CK12. Can you assign it? By default, we assign it to everyone in the class. So you can create an assignment. Just go to the dashboard. So by default, our assignments will go to the entire class. So let me just do this. And then once it's in the class, you can modify that and just assign it to a particular student. But it will show up in the class feed, I guess. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so this was the practice that I just assigned from the dashboard. What I'm going to do here is click Edit. So like I said, by default, we do all students. You can uncheck that and then just pick the students that you want. So unfortunately, yeah, it will go to all the students, but you can modify that and set it to just the students that you want. And then also just to kind of go over through these. So by default, we do 100%, 100 points for the grade, but you can also change that here.
Great. Another question is, somebody was talking about resubmissions. You showed earlier the ability to turn in again. How does somebody turn off the student's ability to resubmit?
I think, let me see if I can, maybe in class settings. So I know from our end, we don't have a way to stop them from resubmitting. If you wanted more control over that, one thing you could do if you're doing like a practice type assignment, you can switch to using a quiz where you can limit the number of attempts. Let me actually show you that, because from our side we won't stop them from submitting. So if it's like in a practice, they could submit that as many times as they wanted to. But from, let's see if I have a quiz. But the quiz will give you a little more control. So you could assign a quiz. Okay, let me just quickly show you guys this.
And this is actually the topic that we're covering in this afternoon session on customizing adaptive practice. So a lot of you haven't even seen our quiz features yet if you've only been attending some of the Getting Started webinars. So the customizing adaptive practice is the one that you're going to want to see for editing quizzes. But Felix is just giving you a little bit of a preview of you do have more controls. You can see that there you've got the number of attempts, you've got the time limit. So you can change the settings on a quiz. Our regular adaptive practice is always just students trying to get 10 correct, and they can keep practicing as much as they want, and they can keep submitting with the idea that they can do a few questions on the bus ride home, do a few after dinner, and always keep submitting. But a quiz, you can control how that experience goes for them.
Great. So that would be my suggestion if you wanted to kind of limit them from resubmitting. You can create a custom quiz like we'll go through in a later webinar. So here I just limited it to one attempt. If I were to assign this to Google Classroom, I'll do that same class. So there, once they do that first attempt, they can no longer attempt it again. So that would be my suggestion for that.
Okay, Felix, do you know about the limitations of Google Classroom allowing like holistic changes for all classes at once? So if somebody has hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, or 4 set up, do you have any suggestions in Google Classroom how to be able to kind of bulk change those?
That I am not too sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually have an answer for that. I mean, we could explore that and maybe see if we can help.
So I guess I misstated the question. I guess this person's acknowledging that Google Classroom doesn't allow a lot of those changes, but what are CK12's options within our classes to create and manage classes in that way?
Okay. So if you wanted to do something like that in, I guess, CK12, and again, this is if you're using CK12, if you're going to be using CK12 and not using Google Classroom, then you could create classes within CK12, and then you can assign to these different classes. We have ways to assign. You can assign to multiple classes at once, if that's an option for you. If you wanted to do like subgroups of a class, you would have to create separate classes for each subgroup, because within the class we don't have a way for you to assign to certain students like you saw within Google Classroom itself. So if I had this empty group 7 and I only wanted to assign to maybe like 2 out of the 3 students, I would then have to create like a separate group with just have those students there to do that.
Within CK12, though, we do have the ability, when you go to assignments, you will see the currently assigned assignments, and then you'll also see all of the assignments you've ever created in the past. So it is just a few quick clicks. If you wanted to go back to something that you'd assigned for hour 1, like old stuff would show up under that available assignments tab there. So you could quickly assign anything that you'd assigned before, and that's what a lot of users do in CK12. We'll do a couple more Q&A questions. Again, we'll stay on as long as we need to. We are kind of at that, we advertised about a half hour. So as you guys need to drop off and go on to other things, you're welcome to do that. I do want to do a few reminders here in just a second, but let's tackle one more question here. To try to clarify that question, someone asked, if I create a quiz and then realize, oh no, question 5 has a mistake, but I've assigned it. If I fix it, do the 4 classes I assigned it to get the fix, or do I have to reassign to all 4 classes?
Yeah, so they'll get the fix. They'll basically have access to the latest revision of that quiz. So if you make a change to it and you've already assigned it, after you've already assigned it, when they come in to do the quiz, they'll basically have the latest version of that quiz. So they'll have the change to question 5.
Okay, now's a good time to continue to populate that Q&A list. I did want to just plug a session we have coming up this afternoon. We've scheduled some case studies this summer. They're offered just one time, and we're trying to, get the group of teachers who are interested in these specific topics together to, to discuss what's happening. So today, for instance, in just an hour and a half, we have a panel that's going to discuss providing professional development for teachers using CK12. So we have 5 individuals from across the country, Nebraska, Tennessee, New Jersey, who are going to talk about how they approach professional development with their schools of, hey, we want to use CK12. How can we train other teachers, do that at a school level, a district level, and even some people who have been presenting through regional and national conferences. So if you want to join us for that case study, again, it's not a core webinar. It doesn't count towards your 5 required live sessions, but it should be interesting. And if that's something that you want to join in on, you can register on our main program page. It'll probably be about 45 minutes is what we're anticipating for that session. And then be on the lookout for the NGSS, adopting CK12, using CK12 for homeschoolers, and CK12 for independent schools. Also, just your reminder that we do have the resource page that is in our book, and it's also at that tiny URL. And then we are checking the feedback page constantly to see what input you guys have on what's going well and what we could do better in these webinars. So you can use that feedback form at any time to give us feedback on anything, any session you've attended. We read every comment, and we're really thankful for you taking time to do that short survey. We are also doing some check-in of the social media. So if you are an active Twitter user, why don't you use the hashtag CK12 certified? You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, LinkedIn. You guys are taking time out of your lives to participate in this professional development. So you should brag about that and let others know. Jumpstart at CK12.org is the place to ask questions, and I'm going to kick back over to the Q&A and see. Actually, it looks like it's kind of empty right now. We'll give you just another few seconds here to ask any last questions of Felix about Google Classroom. And if none come in, then we will consider taking a quick break before that next panel happens. Okay, we're going to end this. We'll see you guys on a future webinar. Thanks for joining us.